Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Tech TLDR. In today's SpaceX news update, we're going to talk about the SN11 activity surrounding that, the Falcon 9 launches upcoming for SpaceX, as well as Russia and China's future space station that they're planning to do together, leaving NASA out of the question. So if you want to know everything, it's also going to be kind of politically involved. Be sure to stick through the whole episode. Drop a like on the video to stay on the tech side, the space side of the YouTube algorithm, and let's get into why you clicked on the video. So the SN11. There was supposedly going to be a static fire yesterday, Friday, March 12th. On March 11th, the SN11 successfully underwent a cryo test. So the SN11 has gone through the pressure test and the cryo test successfully. All that's left to do now is the static fire test. There was activity for the SN11 yesterday. If we watch from Mary Boca Chica gal's videos, there was venting going on. However, the static fire was eventually scrubbed for the day. And if we go on Cameron County's website, we can see that there are no closures for today or tomorrow, March 14th. So the SN11, SpaceX, they're not going to be doing any static fire testing this weekend. At the earliest, it will be Monday. And so if you see anything like tomorrow saying that there's a test, I wouldn't believe it if I was you. But we do have good news from SpaceX. So the booster, the BN1, is now in the high bay. This high bay is where the SN9, 10, 11, where they all go to finish the completion. But now the Super Heavy booster is actually in its place. So we're going to see a little bit of time until the SN15 is in that place. And what SpaceX plans to do with this booster, they've yet to announce. The options are either they finish this booster and they put it to the side, they take it out of the high bay and have it wait until they can put it onto an actual Starship and launch it, or they connect it to the SN15 when that comes out. The SN11, I doubt that. I highly doubt they're going to put it on the SN11. Another theory is that they may just test the booster itself, essentially putting a bunch of Raptor engines underneath and launching it. These are all possibilities. You let me know in the comments what you think they're going to do with this booster. This is entirely speculation. That's just news I want to talk about regarding the fact that they are working on a booster, but nobody yet has any news on what is going to be happening with this booster. So please, if you have any info, you have any ideas, any insights, drop it down in the comments. Let's have a conversation about what they're going to do with that. Next up, tomorrow, Sunday, March 14th, SpaceX announced that they want to launch the Falcon 9 into orbit for 60 more of the Starlink satellites, which is ridiculous considering they literally just launched 60 earlier this week. They are at a tremendous pace to get this internet service on track to, have a good customer base. They want that cash flow. It's so exciting to see it constantly happening. I was also reading Everyday Astronaut's post on his articles, and he was saying that this booster actually has the quickest turnaround time for SpaceX in terms of how long it's been since it first lifted off. So they are getting so quick at reusing their products. I love it. I love seeing the progress that SpaceX is making in terms of just being a company that can constantly produce and have a great service. And it's just a glimpse into the future. This is only one company. Just imagine 10 years from now when there are hopefully, several companies that are able to do this type of technology. Who knows? Like the cost of what it could be. It could be so cheap by that point because of the competition and the technology that they have in place is making it so affordable. So although, it's just another everyday launch of more satellites for SpaceX, to me, it's just another step forward into the future. So I'm really excited to see SpaceX doing this. Now, the big story of today, personally, my idea of the biggest story of today, Russia and China are planning to come together for their own space station. This is a very political thing. This is from NBC. This was like the only article I could find that really went in depth in terms of what I wanted to find. There were a few other articles, but NBC did a good job. So let's give backstory on Russia, China, United States, and the space industry, right? So China can't work on the ISS. They are not allowed to be a part of that whole operation, but Russia is. Russia and the United States are joint ventured on the ISS. Their company, Roscosmos, I believe I pronounced that right, is who is working with NASA, because that's their Russian space agency. That's who's working with NASA in terms of the ISS. Before that, the Cold War, the space race, Russia and the United States were not on good terms with each other. And they've never really been buddy-buddy. Yeah, the analogy I would make is sort of like Dragon Ball Z, if you've ever watched that show. There's Goku and Vegeta. And although they get along at any point, one of them would prove to the other who's really stronger, and that's kind of how the United States and Russia operate. I'm from the United States. Of course, I'm biased. The United States has always been better than Russia. But regardless, Russia is now apparently teaming up with China in their own moon space station related activities. They don't want to continue to work with NASA. NASA invited them onto the Artemis program, and Russia, they never declined it, but they've yet to accept it either. And this is sort of their, China and Russia's way of competing with that Artemis program. According to Dmitry Rogozin, this is a chief at Roscosmos, he is saying that essentially the United States is no longer cooperating with other governments the way that they believe they should be, and this is why they no longer want to work with the United States, because they're saying that the United States essentially would be like a monopoly of space. This is, you can look at this however you want. This is very, like I said, this is very political. Russia, China, United States, all superpowers in the world in terms of individual countries, and Russia is sorting to side with the side of China. As an American myself, of course, like, I want America to go into space. I want us to, do really well. I don't want us to own space. I don't want any country or nation to be the owner, quote unquote, owner of space activities. But of course, you want your, pride in your own country. It's just something nice to have. It's scary, no matter who the country is, that if they're not cooperating at scale, then that is becoming a, monopoly, a dictatorship. Again, I'm not saying that the United States wants to be that. I'm just saying that the point, it makes sense. You don't want one individual country owning something like that, being the bully and the ruler of the rules and can dictate what can and can't happen is definitely, it's not something you want. At the same time, though, no offense to Russia, but Russia really never has been the best at space. They never put anybody on the moon. You can drop in the comments if you think the United States really went on the moon or not. I think they did. Yeah, I believe that. They went on the moon. Russia never has put anyone on the moon. They've had multiple problems with their space agency. So with them cutting ties to the United States isn't losing anything. NASA's not losing anything. If anything, we're more focused on SpaceX. SpaceX is the company. It's really not NASA at this point. Let's be real here. Blue Origin might make a big leap with Jeff Bezos as their full-time CEO again. But this is more or less like China. This is more about China. They're getting a big grip into the space industry over the past decade. They've really come a long way, their space program. But the bigger thing, too, is also, let's look at why has NASA essentially floundered over the past few decades. Well, it's because they relied on government funding, and when the government said, hey, we're not making any money off of this, they just, began cutting the funding to the organization. And that's what's going to be with China and Russia's problem, in my opinion. This is China's, the government-controlled space agency. So they're going to be throwing a lot of money at it, of course, but it's not a business like SpaceX is. SpaceX has to make a good product, and they have to perform services that make them money. The Chinese space, their program doesn't have to do that necessarily. And so I think in the long term, that will actually be their problem. Sure, they may get that moon station. They may have excellent programs in the next decade, but we got to think long term here. If the government, they're not really making any money off this, eventually they may just cut ties with it. Whereas SpaceX, they're making money from Starlink and from other ventures. They're going to continue to grow, and other private companies are going to continue to grow. That's the beautiful thing about capitalism, is it does incentivize companies, not governments. Again, I'm not a political guy. I have no idea how to run a country. I don't know what the best sort of economic structure is. These are just my own opinions. You can destroy me in the comments if you want. You can compliment me. You can do whatever you want in the comments. I'd love to hear it. Be sure to drop a like on the video too, even if you don't like it. Subscribe to the channel if you want more space-related content or EV-related content. That's all I have for you guys in this one. So make sure to have a good rest of the weekend.